What we're going to do is start with the background first. So I'm using a canvas board and I paint it in a light sort of mustardy coloured yellow and I let it dry. Then I proceeded to use a large flat brush and paint on some dark green sort of trees and grasses, and just really sort of mixed up sort of different sort of greens. So I was using Prussian blue with burnt umber, and I mixed a bit of yellow in there just to kind of create all these lovely yummy dark greens, and just sort of really sort of coat those on and create lots of different marks. Just have a go. Even if you've never tried acrylic paintings before, just have a go. It's so much fun. And as you can see there, I'm just using lovely expressive brush strokes and just sort of getting some nice texture in that foreground there. So use a nice the biggest brush that you have, and just have fun with it and block in. In acrylic painting, we work dark to light. So I've rinsed off my brush there. So as with acrylic paints, if you don't rinse off your brush, the paints can dry hard, so make sure you give them a good rinse. I've blow dried my painting and I'm going to work now wet on dry, so the background's all dry. I've mixed up some of the blue with some white. It's quite a pale colour, and I'm just sort of painting in the background sky. Again, check out that reference photograph. There's lots of light coming from behind. You don't have to worry about detail at this stage of the acrylic painting. Just get in and block in your sort of large sort of shapes. So I've dealt with all the trees and grasses. Don't worry about those trees just yet. Just get in that sort of background to begin with. So you're setting the stage for your silver birch trees. So this large flat brush, I'm really sort of making sure I get plenty of paint on the brush, and then I'm just blocking in that sky area. And then just let that dry. What I'm going to do now is build up some lighter marks in these grasses. Again, check out that reference photograph. It's got lovely light textures in the foreground. I'm still using that large flat brush, and I've mixed up a sort of a yellowy green. So with that blue, I've added a touch more yellow to it. And I would say just try and vary your colours. It just makes your painting look a bit more interesting. So I've added a little bit of ochre there to warm up that green, and then a little bit of brown. So you can really play around with the colour mixes, and also try to get lots of different marks. Don't repeat the same mark in the same direction. Remember, this is nature and you want to create some lovely loose gestural marks. Have fun with it. So I'm actually using the tip of this flat brush here. It's a 1-inch brush just to make some smaller marks. Now I have actually swapped to a little tiny 1/4-inch brush to do these sort of thinner blades of grass that are in the foreground then. I will be doing a little bit more to this later, but I just want to get some smaller marks using this small flat brush, and they're a little bit lighter in tone. So I'm sort of using sort of more mid and light tone greens, again varying the colours. What I'm doing now is I'm painting in the tonal sort of birch trees. So I've mixed up a bit of purple and yellow ochre, but you can use whatever sort of brownish sort of colour you want to. It's just to block them in. I'm going to sort of build up the detail with this later. So I'm using a 1/2-inch flat brush and just sort of really roughly painting these in. This is a very loose painting and it's quite an impressionistic style. So have fun with it. So the trees in the distance will be sort of thinner and higher up in the painting, and the trees in the middle distance will come down a bit and be a bit fatter, and then obviously the trees in the foreground will be a lot bigger and come right down into the foreground. So you can really create perspective by doing that as well, and already then you create depth in your painting. What I'm doing here now is I'm painting the large birch tree right in the foreground there. Don't be afraid of painting large marks. Just use a large brush, lots of paint on your brush, and just go for it. You can see I'm not trying to finesse anything here. I will do that later. So you just want to block in things and free up. Start painting. Stop. Don't sort of feel tight. Just go for it. The beauty of acrylics, if it goes wrong, you can just paint over the top afterwards. So there's no pressure. What I'm doing now is just using a little plastic palette knife, and I'm going to start painting with it, which is such fun. It's almost like buttering toast or, something like that. So I'm just smearing that on the left-hand side of those birch trees where the light's coming from, and trying to keep it away from the right-hand side. So that initial initial colour that I put down can act as the tonal value or the shade on the tree. So just pull that down. And the thing is, because I'm using a canvas board, you can see there's some nice texture there as well. So really sort of cream on that light white paint on the left hand side with your palette knife. If you don't have a palette knife, what I'm doing is I'm using one of those little wooden pegs you get at the back of box canvas paintings to stretch them. But you could use a plastic store card cut up as well. Make sure it's an old one. But I'm just using this now to put on the darks of the marks on the birch trees, but you could actually put the white paint on as well if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be a palette knife. So I'm just going to put all these little marks on using violet, burnt umber and Prussian blue. Vary them, make some smaller, make some wider. Really have a look at the reference photograph, really study it and enjoy bringing these birch trees to life. I was getting totally in the zone with this, so I've decided to use that wooden peg and just print the white as well on there, and it's so effective. And I put a little bit of yellow ochre in there as well, just to warm up some of the colour, because there's some lovely warm tones in those trees. Now I'm using a natural sponge, and I'm just mixing the green with the sponge. I've not even bothered using a brush. And I'm just printing very gently the textured marks that the sponge makes. You can even use one of those green scourers for this as well. So what I do is I wet the sponge first, wring all the water out, and then use it when it's damp. You get better marks that way. And I'm varying the greens. I'm using yellow and yellow ochre and the blue and the brown, getting light greens, mid greens and dark greens. There's a lovely dark green there. Press very, very gently. If you press hard, you get a bit of a splodge. Press gently and you get a lovely bit of texture. I'm using some lighter tones here at the base of some of the trees just to kind of really cover them up and make them look like they're really growing out of the grasses there. Just enjoy it. Don't go too mad with the sponge because you'll end up with a very over textured painting. So be selective. Obviously I put some at the top there. I'm putting a little bit around the base of the trees, but I still want those underpainting coming through as well. I'm getting towards the end of the painting now and I want to start putting some details in, and in the photograph, in the reference photograph, there is some little wildflowers in there, and I just mixed up some white and pink. Any pink will do. If you don't have pink, just put white and blue. They could even be bluebells, and I'm just painting little dots with a small brush, again varying the sizes. Don't put them all in a row. It's not in a sort of formal garden. This is the great outdoors, so just kind of make them look as natural as possible, putting them maybe put the larger sort of spotty sort of pinks in the foreground and make them a little bit smaller in the background. I've actually watered down my acrylics there just to spatter the paint so you can make some really small dots, and I'm just putting my hand there to protect it from getting into the sky. What I'm doing now is I'm just painting some thinner trees and branches, again just to sort of finish off this painting. So just using a little round brush and just painting this on just to kind of finish off. So don't even worry if your lines aren't straight. With this type of painting, because it's quite impressionistic, it's very loose, you can really get away with a lot, and it's great for beginners. It really is. It's such fun to do, and remember, there's no pressure here. If it goes wrong, let it dry, paint over the top. No one will ever know. That's the fun of acrylics. It really is. And the great thing is it can dry so quickly. You can blow dry it with a hairdryer or let it dry naturally, and you can work on it the same day. So just continue putting those last marks and details in. Finish off now with one of my favourite things. I love to sort of print using a plastic store card cut up. So I'm just literally picking up some yellow paint and printing with it and sort of scraping along with it. It just gives those little bit of detail in those grasses right in the foreground, and it's so effective because it really creates very thin blades. And I've used some white as well. I thought I might just put a few more markings in the silver birch trees, you know, those very thin lines on the trees, so you can see how I worked from those very large shapes at the very beginning, built up my tonal values, then got the trees in, then got those marks in, really building up, and then finally you go in with your last bits of details to bring the painting together. What I'm doing here is I'm just sort of tidying up a little bit. I've had a little bit of reflection on my painting, and I thought I'd just sort of get some of the edges on the main trees back there because they looked a bit untidy, and there's no harm in doing this. I was a bit naughty because I didn't wait for my painting to dry, but I would advise you, if you're going to do this, wait for your painting to dry. So just a few little bit more marks and details there. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? You'll get updates of my latest videos. Remember to set that little notification bell. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.